The first warning came without a sound. High above the silver skies of the planet Elessar, thousands of glowing defense towers suddenly turned dark. One by one, they stopped sending signals to the capital below. For over 3,000 years, the city of Arethas had never lost contact with its shield network. Then every light disappeared. Inside the Crystal Palace, Queen Elessar Velkarin stood before a floating star map. She watched the bright lines around her kingdom fade into darkness. Her silver eyes narrowed. Something impossible was happening. "It cannot be an attack," one royal advisor whispered. "No fleet has crossed our borders." Elessar did not answer. She had ruled the Astrian Union for 12 peaceful years. Their worlds were protected by the most advanced defense system in known space. Every entrance was watched. Every weapon was tracked. No enemy could enter unnoticed. Unless someone had opened the gates from inside. Before anyone could speak again, the palace shook. The floor trembled beneath their feet as distant explosions echoed across the capital. A second later, the emergency lights flashed red. "Security breach," an officer shouted through the communication network. "Multiple internal forces have seized the western defense halls." Another explosion. Closer this time. The queen slowly turned toward the giant palace windows. Smoke was already rising from several towers. "This was planned," she said quietly. Her guards immediately surrounded her. "We must evacuate, Your Majesty." She nodded once. The palace contained hidden escape routes known only to the royal family and 6 elite guardians. Or so everyone believed. At the eastern landing platform, Captain Seren opened the secret passage. Then he smiled. It was not the smile of a loyal protector. It was the smile of a traitor. Behind him, dozens of armored soldiers stepped out from hidden transport ships that had landed under false identification codes. The queen stopped walking. Her heartbeat slowed. Every one of her personal guards suddenly lowered their weapons. Not toward the attackers. Toward her. Elessar looked from one familiar face to another. "You," she whispered. Captain Seren bowed slightly. "The union is finished, Your Majesty." The queen felt colder than the night air. "You served my family for 20 years. I served until someone offered a better future." Without another word, the traitors activated pulse restraints aimed directly at the queen. But before anyone fired, a loud human voice echoed across the landing platform. "Everyone stay exactly where you are." Every head turned. Standing beside a diplomatic shuttle was a tall man wearing dark gray combat armor with a blue United Earth emblem on his shoulder. Sergeant Mason Reed. He had arrived only 4 hours earlier as part of a routine cultural exchange between Earth and the Astrian Union. His mission had nothing to do with war. Nothing to do with royal security. He was simply waiting for permission to leave. Instead, he had walked into a revolution. One rebel laughed. "Human." Another smiled. "This does not concern you." Mason calmly looked across the platform. More than 30 armed soldiers. 6 royal traitors. Only one frightened queen. No escape. No backup. His communication device buzzed. "Earth Command." He answered immediately. "Sergeant Reed, we are detecting instability. Withdraw to your shuttle immediately." He looked at the queen. She stood completely alone now. No one remained beside her. He answered quietly. "Negative." There was silence. Then Command spoke again. "Repeat your response." "I said negative." "You have no authority to interfere." "I know. You are alone." "I know. This is not Earth's war." Mason looked at the frightened queen, then back toward the approaching soldiers. "No." His voice stayed calm. "But leaving someone to die, because paperwork says I should." He slowly removed his helmet. "That's not why I became a soldier." He disconnected the communicator. Earth Command never heard another word. Captain Seren laughed loudly. "You intend to fight all of us?" Mason shrugged. "I was hoping you'd surrender." Several rebels burst into laughter. One raised his plasma rifle. "You humans really believe those old hero stories?" Mason answered with a small smile. "No. I just believe bullies should meet someone willing to stand up." The rebel pulled the trigger. Mason moved first. The blue plasma bolt missed him by centimeters. His combat knife struck the rifle aside while his armored shoulder slammed into the attacker. The rebel crashed across the landing pad. Before anyone reacted, Mason grabbed the fallen plasma weapon. 3 controlled shots. 3 rebels collapsed. Chaos exploded. Blaster fire filled the air. The Queen watched in complete disbelief. Humans were respected for engineering.
For trade.
For diplomacy. Not for impossible battlefield aggression. Mason rolled behind a transport crate. Energy blasts shattered the metal around him. Another rebel rushed forward. Mason caught the attacker's arm, twisted sharply, and sent him flying over the crate. The soldier hit the ground unconscious. Captain Saran frowned. Surround him. More rebels spread across the platform. The Queen knew exactly what would happen. 1 human could delay them. Nothing more. Yet, Mason never stepped backward. He kept placing himself between every incoming shot and the Queen, even when he had clear chances to retreat, even when escape remained possible.
He stayed.
The Queen finally spoke. You do not even know my name. Without taking his eyes off the enemy, Mason answered. I don't need to. A grenade landed nearby. Its warning light flashed red. Mason saw it. So did the Queen. There was only 1 second left. Instead of saving himself, the human ran toward the grenade. The grenade exploded with a blinding flash. The entire landing platform shook as fire rolled across the polished crystal floor. Metal fragments flew in every direction, and thick gray smoke swallowed everything within seconds. Queen Elessar covered her face, certain the human had been torn apart. Then, through the smoke, she heard footsteps. Heavy, steady. Sergeant Mason Reed emerged from the burning haze, with scorch marks across his armor. His left shoulder plate was cracked and blood ran down one arm, but he was still standing. In his hand was the damaged grenade casing. He had thrown it over the edge of the platform just before it exploded. Several rebels stared in disbelief. Impossible, one whispered. Captain Saran's face darkened. Enough games. Kill him. More than 20 plasma rifles fired at once. Bright blue bolts crossed the platform like lightning. Mason pushed the Queen behind a thick support column. Stay down. The column shook as plasma blasts slammed into it. Pieces of crystal rained onto the floor. Mason checked the captured rifle. Only 6 shots remained. He smiled slightly. That'll have to do. He leaned out for less than a second.
6 shots.
6 rebels dropped before anyone realized where the fire had come from. The rifle clicked empty. He tossed it aside. A rebel charged with an energy blade. Mason stepped forward instead of backward. The glowing blade swept toward his neck. He caught the attacker's wrist with both hands, twisted hard, and forced the weapon into the ceiling. Sparks showered across the room. With one powerful knee strike, the rebel collapsed unconscious. The others hesitated. Not because they feared one human, because they could not predict him. Every move broke the rules they expected. Every decision ignored the safest option. Captain Saran shouted, "He is only one man." Mason answered from across the room. So, why haven't you stopped me? The rebels exchanged nervous glances. For the first time since the coup began, doubt entered their minds. Far above the palace, emergency broadcasts spread across the capital. Citizens watched security feeds showing a lone human holding back an entire rebel force. The recordings spread from building to building. Factories stopped working. Transport pilots paused their routes. Even distant mining colonies received the signal. Who is he? No one knows. Why is a human protecting our queen? I thought humans were only diplomats. Every minute the story grew. Not because of propaganda. Because millions were watching it happen live. Inside the palace, Mason and Elessar moved through narrow service corridors. The Queen activated an old holographic map hidden inside the wall. Our emergency command center is beneath the eastern tower, she said. If we reach it, I can contact the loyal fleet. Mason studied the map. There. He pointed toward a maintenance tunnel. It isn't the shortest route. It is the safest. Elessar looked surprised. How do you know? He pointed towards several blinking lights. If I wanted to trap someone, I'd guard the obvious paths. The queen looked at him with new respect. You think like them. Mason shook his head.
No.
I think like someone who wants to stay alive. A loud crash echoed behind them. The rebels had found the corridor. They're close, Elessar whispered. Mason looked ahead. The maintenance tunnel was barely wide enough for one person. Go. What about you? I'll slow them down. I cannot leave you. He smiled. That's kind. Then his expression became serious. But if they catch you, everything I've done means nothing. For a moment the queen refused to move. She had lost her guards, her advisors, her generals. Now the only person standing beside her was someone from another world. Someone who owed her absolutely nothing. She finally nodded. I will return. I'll hold you to that. She disappeared into the tunnel. Mason turned around just as the first rebels entered the corridor. He picked up a broken metal pipe from the floor. One rebel laughed. The human has run out of weapons. Mason spun the pipe once in his hand.
No.
I've just become creative. The first attacker rushed forward. The pipe struck the rifle aside. A second hit knocked the soldier off balance. A third sent him crashing into two others. The narrow hallway became chaos. The rebels could not use their numbers. Only one or two could attack at a time. Exactly as Mason intended. Minutes passed. The floor became covered with damaged weapons and unconscious soldiers. But Mason was slowing down. His breathing grew heavier. His injured shoulder bled through the broken armor. Captain Saran finally stepped forward himself. You should have walked away when you had the chance. Mason wiped blood from his face. Probably. Saran activated twin plasma blades. You cannot win. Mason tightened his grip on the metal pipe. I'm not trying to win. Saran frowned. What? I'm trying. Mason glanced toward the tunnel where the queen had disappeared. To give her enough time. At that exact moment, deep beneath the palace, ancient defense engines suddenly came back to life. Blue energy surged through the city's towers. One by one, the lights of Arethas began shining again. Captain Saran's confident smile vanished. The queen had reached the command center. And now, the entire capital was waking up. The moment the defense towers awakened, the capital of Arethas changed. Blue beams of energy shot into the sky, reconnecting thousands of satellites that had gone silent only minutes earlier. Across the city, locked security gates slammed shut around rebel positions. Escape routes vanished. Emergency drones rose from hidden chambers beneath the streets. The rebellion had expected panic. Instead, they found themselves trapped. Captain Saran looked toward the glowing skyline, his face pale. No, he whispered. This isn't possible. It is now, Mason replied. The human stood in the ruined corridor, barely able to lift the bent metal pipe. His armor was cracked from shoulder to knee, and blood stained the floor beneath him. Every breath burned through his chest, yet his eyes never left the enemy. Saran raised both plasma blades. If I kill you, none of this matters. Mason smiled tiredly. You've been saying that for a while. With a furious shout, Saran charged. The corridor exploded into motion. One glowing blade sliced through the air, but Mason ducked just in time. He drove the metal pipe into Saran's side. The rebel captain staggered only for a moment before striking again. The pipe shattered. Now Mason held nothing. Saran laughed. Finally, he swung both blades together. Mason stepped inside the attack instead of away from it. One hand grabbed Saran's wrist. The other struck the captain's damaged armor joint with every ounce of strength he had left. The armor cracked. Saran lost his balance. Mason tackled him through the broken wall. Both men crashed onto the lower platform overlooking the palace gardens. The impact echoed across the courtyard. For several seconds, neither man moved. Then Saran slowly stood, wounded but alive. Mason struggled to his knees. He could barely see. His vision blurred. His strength was gone. Saran pointed a plasma blade toward the human's chest. It ends here. Before he could strike, a calm voice echoed across the palace.
No.
Queen Elessar stepped onto the balcony above them. She wore the ceremonial crown of Asteria once more, surrounded by rows of loyal royal guardians who had answered the restored emergency signal. Behind them stood dozens of combat drones aiming directly at the rebels below. Across the city, loyal soldiers poured into the palace grounds. The rebellion was over. Captain Saran looked around in horror. His army was surrounded. One by one, rebel soldiers dropped their weapons. Saran refused. With a desperate scream, he rushed toward the queen. He never reached her. Mason forced himself forward one last time. He intercepted Saran's charge, driving both of them away from the queen's position. At that exact second, a defense drone fired a precise stun blast. The pulse struck Saran squarely in the chest. His armor overloaded. The former captain collapsed unconscious. Silence filled the courtyard. The battle had ended. Mason remained standing for only a heartbeat longer. Then his legs gave out. The queen caught him before he hit the ground. "You stayed," she whispered, when everyone else left. Mason smiled weakly. "I said I'd give you enough time." His eyes closed. Medical teams rushed forward. For hours, the palace waited. No one spoke above a whisper. Even hardened soldiers stood silently outside the medical wing. They had all seen the recordings. One human had held back an entire rebellion long enough to save a civilization. At sunrise, the medical chamber doors finally opened. The chief physician smiled. "He will live." Relief swept through the palace like a wave. Queen Elessar entered the room alone. Mason slowly opened his eyes. "I guess I'm still here." She laughed softly, the first genuine laugh she had allowed herself since the attack. "Yes. And because of you, so is my people." Weeks later, representatives from more than 100 star systems gathered in the Grand Hall of Unity. Never before had so many civilizations stood together beneath one roof. The queen walked to the center of the hall. Beside her stood Sergeant Mason Reed, his arms still in a medical brace. She faced the assembly. "For thousands of years, we believed our greatest protection was our walls."
She paused.
"We were wrong. Our greatest protection was the courage of one person who had every reason to walk away and chose not to." The hall fell silent. Queen Elessar removed the royal star crest from her own ceremonial robes. It had never been given to anyone outside the royal bloodline. Not once in 3,000 years. She placed it in Mason's hands. "From this day forward, Sergeant Mason Reed of Earth shall forever be known as the Guardian Beyond Blood." The chamber erupted into applause. Delegates from world after world rose to their feet. Many had never met a human before. None of them would ever forget this one. Months later, schools across the Astarian Union taught children about the Day of the Silent Towers. Statues were built, not showing Mason holding a weapon, but standing between danger and someone who could not defend themselves. The inscription beneath every statue carried the same words. "A hero is not the one who is ordered to stand. A hero is the one who stays, when leaving would be easier." Back on Earth, Mason refused fame. He declined interviews, medals, and celebrations. When asked why, he simply smiled. "I didn't save a queen. I saved a person." Years passed. The friendship between Earth and the Astarian Union became the strongest alliance in known space. Wars grew fewer, trade flourished, and together they explored regions of the galaxy that neither civilization could have reached alone. Whenever new diplomats arrived at the Crystal Palace, Queen Elessar always stopped before one simple bronze statue near the entrance. It showed a tired human soldier standing alone, facing impossible odds. Visitors often asked why the statue stood at the palace gates instead of inside the royal hall. The queen always gave the same answer. "Because every person who enters this palace should remember one truth before they take another step." She would look toward the stars, where Earth shone like a distant blue light, and quietly say, "Strength is measured by power, but greatness is measured by the choice to protect someone when you have nothing to gain." And across the galaxy, that choice became known as the moment one ordinary human changed history forever. The end. Like and subscribe if you like my videos and comment below.